Here we go, the grand finale. Let's get straight into this. The weight of expectations can often have deep-rooted psychological effects on us, and these two are living proof of that. Tai Lung versus Azula. First of all, let me just say I don't hate Azula versus Cinder. I just don't think Cinder has the same star power as Tai Lung. Plus, I just really love Tai Lung as a character and think this works a lot better. Both of these prodigies, burdened by expectations, turned psychotic murderers, absolutely deserve an episode, specifically against each other, and are the likely candidates from both franchises for the next episode. I think Tai wins, but I'm unsure. I think it could go either way, and I'm cool with that. As for the fight, with their brutal tenacity, with their forms of martial arts, as well as their psychotic nature adding to the banter, with both trying to mentally break down each other with their manipulation, and both rambling about how they are truly worthy for their desired role. And while firebending may be an issue for Tai Lung to mesh well, it's not like he can't handle fire himself, as showcased by his fight with Shifu. Plus, Azula is more of a close-range fighter anyways with her firebending. What is appealing about this dynamic is that it's all about who can one-shot each other first, with Azula trying to shoot lightning when given the chance, and Tai Lung using pressure points to disable Azula. Plus, you can have a moment where Azula propels herself in the air with her fire, aiming to shoot Tai Lung with her lightning, but Tai Lung uses the environment around him to keep up, similar to the prison escape. Or you can have the fight escalate to Tai Lung temporarily stopping Azula's firebending, forcing her to resort to pure martial arts, before Tai Lung uses pressure points again to disable her. You can even have a one-man army versus a whole army with the Dai Li, as Azula has control over them. Having Tai Lung one-shot them all would be so cool. I like the idea of using Kung Fu Panda for Tai here, since he's accepted that he is not worthy of being a Dragon Warrior. So maybe you can have a moment where Tai Lung sees himself within Azula, perhaps mentoring her, but of course Azula won't have it. This matchup is just so good, and I pray more people see the appeal. Back in 2022, when the 2D ballot was happening, my vote did not go to Bill Cord or even Kyle versus Simone. It went to this. Finn and Jake versus Mordecai and Rigby. Man, I feel nostalgic even mentioning this matchup. I grew up with this era of Cartoon Network. Adventure Time was usually on in the background whilst I ate or did other stuff, and Regular Show is one of my favourite shows of all time. I have so many fond memories of Mordecai and Rigby and the rest of the Park Gang that I really would be bothered if they lost. Mr. Bait is fairly close too, which is worrying. The banter here could be amazing. You can practically do whatever you want thanks to the power, and above all else, it would make me, and so many others, happy. This one's extremely popular as is, so I don't want to go any further. You already know why it's great. It's always nice to see popular matchups where there's no boring comic book characters and no OP anime characters, but rather just two monsters duking it out. Kyogre versus Chaos. I love the Hoenn region, even though I do prefer ground onto Kyogre, but Kyogre is still awesome regardless. As for Chaos, well, Sonic Adventure 1 is my favourite Sonic game, so that should tell you everything about who I want to win and why. Just such an awesome matchup. There's clearly good track potential, the debate is mostly solid, and man, the animation potential is good. This may sound weird, but I actually think Chaos being a lot smaller than Kyogre for the first scenes would work to the animation's benefit. We've had stuff like Adam vs Apocalypse and Giant Bowser vs Pig Ganon before. Notable size difference, but those scenes worked for the little screen time they had. Giant Apocalypse punching down a Black Adam actually went kind of hard, so I can easily see them making it work here. Even if Kyogre mostly uses projectiles, I can easily see Kyogre beginning to overwhelm Chaos, with Chaos gaining more and more Chaos Emeralds as the fight progresses just to keep up with Kyogre. Another thing I like about the animation potential is the expansion of the battlefield as it goes on. The more powerful Chaos becomes, the more Kyogre will have to try and kill him, causing more destruction, climaxing when Kyogre goes primal and Chaos goes perfect. At this point, the world is probably flooded, the sky is clouded, it's a completely flat plane for the characters to fight on, and I think it could be super intense, and the entire thing would have this super apocalyptic feel that not a lot of other matchups have. Yeah, you can have planetary or universal destruction, but that's not going to be as recognizably intimidating as Earth being completely covered in water. Also, this may not seem that strong, but it's actually pretty on brand for Chaos as a character to be forced into its full potential like this, because that's actually its origin story. It was originally a gentle creature, but meddling from outside violent forces caused it to get angry and destructive. Chaos simply existing would be enough for Kyogre to start throwing hands, considering it intends to flood the Earth and drown all life. So I can see Chaos not trying much at first before being forced into going full throttle. How cool of a concept is that? As for animation style, I think sprites would be the easiest, but 3D would be awesome if pulled off correctly. Please let this happen. More positive Sonic representation is always a win. We need a classic Western fight, and there's only one that really comes to mind here. Cassidy versus Erron Black. Two of my favourite fictional franchises duking it out is always a win. Erron is alright, a bit overrated in my opinion, especially from a story perspective. Cassidy, or McCree if you've been playing Overwatch for 8 years like I have, is one of my favourites. Even if I don't like playing him that much in Overwatch 2, I even have his golden gun. If I do recall correctly, the team did show some interest in doing a fight on a train. This matchup could definitely provide a classic Western train fight, with Cole being sent on a mission to retrieve something and Erron Black being hired to guard. The fight could at first be forced into close quarters due to the cramped space inside the train, before it goes on top of the train to continue fighting. The climax could have Cassidy throw a sticky grenade onto the tracks, causing the train to derail, and from the dust, the two rise up and finally do a Western standoff with both shooting their guns. If Cole wins, it would stagger Erron, causing Cassidy to close distance, fan his gun and stick a grenade to Erron, killing him. If Erron wins, he does a fatality, specifically his 6-shooter fatality from MKX. This is a surprisingly debatable fight too. Both are generally comparable in stats, as Erron and Cassidy don't really scale to any of the higher tiers in their verse, unless you buy Uni Erron. Cassidy has formal training from characters such as Honor, meanwhile Erron has more experience due to being alive a lot longer. Erron has a wider arsenal, but Cole can keep a distance and use stun grenades if he gets too close. Although, overall, I do believe Erron is more likely to win the fight. Although there are potential arguments of Cassidy being a lot faster, potentially giving him the win. Ben seems to prefer Erron versus Jonah, which I despise. This matchup deserves more attention. Earlier in the list, I mentioned moving a matchup down from the 60s or 50s down to the top 10. This is it. Dormammu versus Giratina. Yes, I know about Trigon, but does anyone really care about Trigon as a character? Thought so. This is a battle between two Dark Lords who were banished to dark and twisted realms by beings of light, only to rule said dimension with an iron fist. As if they escaped, they would destroy the whole universe, possibly even the multiverse. And yeah, this is multiversal versus multiversal, but going into Pokemon scaling is far more interesting than another DC character. You know I'm right here. I love the idea of them playing with the visuals of either the Dark Dimension or the Distortion world, or even both, since both are iconic for their visuals alone. Just that idea alone is enough to make me love this matchup. I also grew up with Gen 4, with Diamond being my first ever Pokemon game. Of course, this was around when I was 3 or 4, and I recently replayed it 15 years later, only to discover the game is kinda mid. Platinum, however, well, its reputation speaks for itself. And Dormammu is one of my favorite Marvel characters, so of course I'd want to see him featured, just not against Trigon, please. As someone being educated within the mental health field, this matchup is very important to me. Master Oogway vs Uncle Iroh. Two former generals turned wise old fun mentors to serious protagonists that would go on to train the chosen ones of their verse. Both characters mean the world to me, both being from two of my favorite fictional franchises. The advice and wisdom that both of them give have honestly stuck with me throughout my entire life, and have helped me grow as a person, something I'm truly thankful for. I'm gonna cut this segment short by just asking you to go watch the crossover Coliseum animation for this. It basically gives you everything I'd want to see for this matchup. And since this takes place in the spirit realm, you can have this end with nobody dying since they're both already dead. Or have Iroh, the loser, get regenerated by the spirit realm. I love this matchup, and I'm happy that so many others do too. See, now this one's just overdue at this point. Bowser vs Eggman. I'll keep this one brief as possible since everyone and their mother thankfully also wants this just as much as I do. Literally, gaming's two most iconic villains Duke can get out. If you really wanted to, you can have their armies Duke can get out in the background too. Of course, the climax has to be the Death Egg Robot versus Fury Bowser, since both of their time and dream related forms and machines aren't really considered standard for them sadly. The track here could be amazing too, and I hate how people are downplaying Eggman here, since I think he has a genuine shot at winning here, although I am still leaning towards Bowser, which is good since he is my preferred of the two. I even have a Bowser onesie as well. You can't go wrong here, unless it isn't a season finale. This one needs that extra budget, I'd say. Here's hoping it gets it. Well, there's only one character left from the preview image left to cover. Death vs Kai. The Spirit Warrior may have escaped death before, but can he do it in a death battle? Kai is my favorite Kung Fu Panda villain, without question. He's just so awesome, and Death is just as good. Genuinely one of my favorite fictional antagonists, period. Now, I know that Death vs Jake exists, but Jake's a tiny rattlesnake. Like, Death can just step on him. Where's the appeal? As for what I want to see out of this matchup, well, I know Werewolf or Brandon can cook with the track. Matchups between both of their themes tend to be pretty damn perfect. The analysis could look at both animals and what they mean for their characters, as well as look in depth at Chi and what the Grim Reaper really is in different cultures and time periods. For the debate itself, it's really fascinating, as there's a lot of questions to answer. Can Death even kill Kai since he's immortal? Can Kai absorb Death's Chi? Does Death even have Chi? It's such a cool debate. Please go watch Goji Chronicles' video for a more in-depth look at this super fascinating debate, since I believe they nailed everything I want to say on this debate. As for the fight itself, I have a few ideas. You start with Kai arriving in the mortal world, only to hear the whistle of death approaching. Realizing that chi absorption won't work on Death, Kai has no choice but to show Death why they call him the Beast of Vengeance. Having Death fight off an army of Jade zombies would be so sick. In terms of aesthetics, during the climax, the loser can ignite the area in green or red fire, and then the winner can change to their color before the kill. Something similar to Akuma vs Shao Kahn's climax. You could have it transition to the Spirit Realm, but I don't know how that will go. Regardless, I love this matchup, and nobody can tell me otherwise. Bet you're disappointed to see a comic book Herald matchup this high up, huh? Asura vs Atrocitus. Now, I just want to say that I am fully okay with Atrocitus vs Jiren, but I just prefer Asura as a character. Two angry behemoths who, after losing most of their family, become consumed by their rage, fueling them on their rampage to kill those responsible, battling emotion-based groups to do so. Asura's Wrath is such an awesome game, and Asura is an amazing character. Atrocitus, well, Atrocitus is my favourite DC character ever. I grew up reading a lot of the Jeff Johns Lantern run, and the Atrocitus and Red Lantern storylines made me so happy as a kid. Trust me, when he was announced in the first gameplay trailer for Injustice 2, I popped off so damn hard. Like, they knew how cool he was. Anyways, unless you buy low ends for Atrocitus and high ends for Asura, this may be a bit unfair for Asura, which I'm not complaining about. It's the fight dynamic that has my hype. Imagine this. We start with a red ring flying in Asura's direction, but he mindlessly breaks it, not wanting anything to do with any groups anymore. Atrocitus, disappointed, intervenes, declaring Asura as his, seeing himself within Asura, wishing to mentor him. Of course, this will trigger Asura, not wanting to be a slave to anyone ever again. We get your usual projectiles, beams, punches, and so on. Atrocitus making a kaiju-sized version of the Butcher to being inside the Red Lantern Central Battery, but eventually Asura turns into his giant-sized Destruction form to counter. Atrocitus growing giant himself to counter that. Think the midpoint of Galactus vs Unicron. In the end, Asura gets knocked down to a distant planet, shrinking in size. Looking up at the planet-sized Atrocitus. Yep, we're doing it. Atrocitus chants the Red Lantern Oath as Asura turns into his rage form, and after finishing the oath, he punches the planet. And Asura, with the aid of a QuickTime event, attempts to punch the fist back, but it's not enough. How cool of an idea is that? Man, I should write more fan scripts. I know it'll never happen, but a boy can dream. We finally made it, my number one. Those of you who have been with this channel a while know exactly what it is. Those of you who don't, I hope I can convince you on it. So, without further ado, my number one most wanted Death Battle episode of all time is getting revealed in its own video. I love this matchup so much to the point I think it deserves its own video, just to get more eyes on it and to work on a fight script I'm happy with. I look forward to hearing what people have to say on it. So, as always, stay safe and be excellent to each other.